AEW's Double or Nothing is this coming Sunday, and we'll give you a full preview of that, as well as our thoughts on the much anticipated NXT Championship rematch between Carrion and Finn Balor. What a battle it was. We've got coverage for that, as well as so much more on this edition of the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast. The bomb drops now. Hello and welcome to this Thursday edition of the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. We appreciate you hanging out with us, whether you are listening in a traditional audio format on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or anywhere in between. Thank you for doing that. If you are watching our smiling faces on YouTube, we appreciate that as well. Wherever you're tuning in, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way, every time we release a new episode, you get it straight to the device of your choice. I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher. Jared is out this week, so joining me is the indie darling himself, the host of the Shandy Show. Andy York is in the house. What's up, man?
Not much, man. I'm glad to be on and talk about some AEW and some wrestling. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we've got Double or Nothing coming up this week, as I mentioned in the intro, so I feel it's really appropriate to have you on for the simple fact that you are the indie darling.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Dropping some bonus content for us this weekend. Yep. I will not be available to watch Double or Nothing this weekend, so the live stream is still going to happen. Mr. Andy York is going to host our live stream this coming Sunday directly after Double or Nothing, so make sure you still interact with us on YouTube and on Facebook. We're going to be all over the place, but Andy is going to take over that stream for us, and we appreciate him doing that. While we are here, let's take care of a little housekeeping while we're at it. At PBW Podcast is where you can find us all over social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can follow me personally at Chris Belcher 24, and I'll flash Andy's stuff up there once we get him back. Make sure that you, again, like I said, subscribe to us. Give us a 5-star review. We greatly appreciate it. That way you also know when a new episode comes up. New episodes drop Mondays and Thursdays. We talk old school. We talk new school. We do live streams. We do interviews. We do everything in between. There is something for every wrestling fan out there on the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast. So make sure that you check us out. Also, visit ProWrestlingTees.com/PBW Podcast and pick yourself up a t-shirt. While you're at it, 20% off this weekend, starting, I believe, today, as you're listening to this on Thursday at noon, going through Monday, is a 20% off sale. You can use the code MEMORIAL. I will throw that up at the end of the show on the screen. That way you don't forget it. But use the code MEMORIAL. Buy yourself a Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast t-shirt. Support us and many of the other wrestlers that are on there. Save yourself 20%. It is a good Memorial Day gift. I mean, Andy, I don't know that we give out Memorial Day gifts, but if we give out Memorial Day gifts, I think that's a good one.
That should be. We should start doing that now.
Memorial Day gifts.
It's like halfway to Christmas. It's close enough to Christmas. We can say it's like half Christmas.
Well, listen,
Memorial Day gifts.
My birthday is on Christmas, so
mine's 2 days after Christmas. So
that's right. I forgot about that. So our birthdays kind of get overshadowed. My wife has often joked about celebrating my birthday halfway in between. Like in June, and I'm always like, well, that's kind of weird. But if we're giving out Memorial Day gifts, we give out birthday gifts in June. I mean,
exactly.
I don't see a problem with that.
I don't either. I'm all for it.
So, man, let's get right to it. We always kick our shows off with Beyond the Federation. That's everything outside of the big house up in New York, as they like to say. The one thing that I want to drop first is, if you guys have tuned in the last couple of weeks, we have extensively covered Coastal Championship Wrestling out of Florida. Those guys at CCW are fantastic. Nellio, Bruce, Ref Amy, all those people couldn't have been nicer with my commentating experience a couple of weeks ago. But they drop their shows on YouTube every Tuesday night. So it's CCW Alive Wrestling every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern, I believe. So make sure that you check that out. There's some great wrestling, and I'm not just blowing smoke, guys. If you are a wrestling fan, you are going to love this show. The reason I bring this up is on this past Tuesday's episode, there is a fatal 4-way match for the CCW Heavyweight Championship. It's Agony, it's Cha-Cha Charlie, it's El Jefe Santos, and it's Alex Ocean. And it is incredible. Do yourself a favor, go check that match out. Again, CCW Alive Wrestling from this past Tuesday, fatal 4-way for the championship. Cheap plug there, but guys, I'm telling you, fatal 4-way match is awesome. You need to go check it out. On to AEW's Double or Nothing. Andy, I'm going to run down the full card right here, and then at the end, give me your thoughts on some stuff that stick out. I want to make sure that we at least mention all the matches. We might not talk about all the matches extensively. And as I texted you before, I don't want to steal your thunder before Sunday. So, but I want to preview this for all of our listeners, because I know a lot of people listening out there like to hear stuff outside of WWE. So we want to do that justice. Want to make sure that our listeners get exactly what they want. So, going to go down the card here real quick. In the main event, a triple threat match, or do they call it a triple threat match, or is it a 3-way? What do they exactly call that?
I don't know if they've actually named it. I think it's a triple threat. I think they just call it traditional.
I know that in 6-man tags they call it trios matches, so I didn't know if in triple threats they had a different name for it.
They may call it like a 3-man match or whatever, but a 3-man match or I don't know.
3-person, I don't know.
3-person, yeah.
Triple threat just works. Let's just go with triple threat, ladies and gentlemen. Triple threat match for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. Kenny Omega defends against Orange Cassidy and Pac, the number 1 and 2 contenders, which I still have a beef with. Hikaru Shida defends her AEW Women's Championship against the long-awaited challenger, in my opinion. Going to try not to sprinkle opinions in here just yet. Britt Baker, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, finally gets her shot. For the AEW Tag Team Championship, it is Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston challenging the champs Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks. In the second Stadium Stampede match, it is the Pinnacle, MJF, Wardlow, FTR, and Sean Spears taking on the Inner Circle, Santana, Ortiz, Jake Hager, Sammy Guevara, and of course, Chris Jericho. Miro defends his newly won TNT Championship against Lance Archer. You've got, in a much anticipated return to the actual ring, Sting teaming up with Darby Allin to take on Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. Cody Rhodes taking on Anthony Ogogo of QT Marshall's faction. I don't know exactly what they're called. Hangman Adam Page taking on Brian Cage, the man who dethroned him as the number 1 contender. And then, of course, you've got the Casino Battle Royale with the winner getting a future shot at the AEW Championship, featuring guys like Christian Cage, Pentagon Jr., Jungle Boy Matt Hardy, Dustin Rhodes, Matt Sydal, the Varsity Blondes, and the list goes on and on and on. Man, it is a loaded show. Let's start at the bottom. I just mentioned the Casino Battle Royale. I'm not necessarily going to ask you for predictions, because I know that this one can go any just crazy direction as it has in the past. But my first question for you about it is, Christian Cage is in it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Is that, I don't want to say it's below him, but is it below him?
Maybe. I think if he wins, it's fine, because of, it's setting up him facing the winner of the triple threat later on the night at some point down the line. So I think that's fine. But, you got to think they tend to put in some pretty high-profile guys into this Casino Battle Royal. I think I'm okay with it in the sense that I think they're trying to just make it to where, like, it's not like the Andre Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania where it's just a bunch of mid-carders being thrown in there. But, like, there are some big high-profile names in there that are have a chance to do something down the line. So I think as long as he wins or is in the final 3 or, whatever it is, I'm okay with him being in it. I think it works pretty well.
Well, I remember listening to Brian Cage's interview on the Unrestricted podcast, and he said the first Casino Battle Royale, I believe it was the first one, he was supposed to be in it as the Impact World Champion, and he got injured and he couldn't be in it. He wasn't supposed to win it, I think he said, but he was supposed to be in it. That being said, like you mentioned, you don't know who they're really going to throw in there, so it could be, Rich Swann could enter it and win it. I think
there's supposed to be there's a mystery. I know there's a mystery entrant. There's a random entrant that's supposed to be in there that we don't know who it's going to be yet.
I bet that's a Big Show.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably Paul White. It could be. I mean, it could be. I don't think Rich Swann has been announced, has he?
I don't think so.
So it could be Rich Swann. It could be Moose from Impact. I think that would be. I think that would be kind of cool. But I think the obvious choice would be that Big Show come in and do it.
Yep, I think so too.
And I really hope they call him the Giant when he goes down there.
As they should. The Giant, Paul White.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be fantastic. No. What I want is him to come out in the Captain Insano gimmick. That's what I want. I want to see Captain Insano.
Yeah.
For those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, please go watch The Waterboy. It's fantastic.
It's amazing. It
really is. Hangman, Adam Page, and Brian Cage. Give me your thoughts real quick on this, because I'm a little perturbed that one loss for Hangman Page completely takes him from number 1 to number 5. I've had a problem with the ranking system. I just feel like you can't. This is wrestling. Okay. I get it. We got to suspend disbelief. We can't apply logic to an illogical situation. I understand that. But just the way that the records stack up, it makes 0 sense that Hangman drops all the way to number 5 and is totally like not just out of the world title picture. Andy, they haven't even mentioned him as that he lost and is out of the world title picture. It's just like it never happened.
Yeah, they put him in a weird spot. He's one of those guys that I think by now he should have been world champion, or at least held a singles title. Like even if it's the TNT championship, that's better than nothing.
Yep,
because he had so much momentum, and I still think he has a lot of momentum. I honestly think this is a chance for him to kind of have his own match, because I think they're going to continue the story of Kenny Omega and Hangman Page like they've been setting up since they were tag champs together and then kind of fell apart. And so I think they're going to bring that back at some point for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship, maybe in front of like a sold out crowd, finally have that match and let Hangman win it in front of a live crowd. I think that would be a good call. But all that being said, I actually am looking forward to this match, because I think it's going to be two powerhouses, but that can also show that they can fight like cruiserweights at time, which is weird. And so I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think this match, there's like 3 or 4 matches on this card that has the potential to steal the night, but I think this is one of them that definitely could.
Oh, I completely agree. I think it's under the radar, especially because neither of them are in the world title picture, or technically not in the world title picture. So yeah, I completely agree. I think this one's going to fly under the radar, and I'm looking forward to a really good match with these guys. This whole ride with Hangman Adam Page has really perturbed me. Like I think it's been mishandled really bad. Like you said, he should have been world champion, at least TNT champion. To me, he should have had the Cody Rhodes spot.
Yeah.
As I understand that Cody needed to be the first TNT champion, and he needed to establish that belt, especially since he came out and said he wasn't going to challenge for the world title anymore. Okay, I get that. First guy that took the title away from him should have been Hangman Adam Page. He should have been an established guy right there, because look, Jericho beat him at what? All Out? Was that right?
Yeah, the first one.
The title?
Yeah.
So Jericho beats him, and Hangman hasn't had a crack at the title since.
No.
Not even close, man.
And he got lost in the tag team division. Not lost. I don't want to say lost, because the AEW tag team division, especially during that time, was outstanding. But he should have been a singles competitor. But then you got to think also, like, he was involved with the Dark Order for a while when unfortunately Luke Harper, but John
Brody Lee.
Yeah, Brody Lee. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. When Brody Lee unfortunately passed away, and so all that kind of got pushed to the side for real life storyline, which that's going to happen. That's I think they handled that as well as they could. Now I don't think they've been able to recover since that point, because I think that they were setting up at some point probably a Brody Lee versus Adam Page match that would have elevated him back up into the main event scene and picture. But maybe now they're doing it in this spot. They're kind of picking back up where they were to elevate him back up to the main event status, to where, the next pay-per-view or 2 pay-per-views, or even on Dynamite, challenges for the AEW World Championship at some point and hopefully wins it.
Yeah, I think he's the guy to take it off of Kenny Omega, but I feel like they have to get him back to where he once was. Because this version of Adam Page is not the guy to beat Kenny Omega. the guy that challenged Chris Jericho at All Out, I want that guy.
Yeah.
If you give me that guy, okay, all bets are off. He can be champion. I would believe that, you know? So I just think it's been mishandled. I thought Kenny Omega was mishandled in the tag team division as well. It was fine for them to do what they did. And like you said, the tag team division was on fire. I get that. I just don't think those guys were handled quite right.
Yeah.
And now I feel like we're suffering with Adam Page for it. Kenny Omega, of course, is going to rise to the top and he's going to be the champ. And I think it's a great story to tell. It's just taken a really long time to get there.
Yeah, it is.
Really long time. Let's move on to the former TNT champion Darby Allin and his partner Sting in a tag team match against Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. Apparently it's going to be a traditional tag team match. Sting's actually going to wrestle in the ring. I think Darby Allin needs this win to pick him back up after dropping the title to Miro, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But give me your thoughts on, we have talked before about how they've been using Sting, how he's doesn't need to be on the show every week, yada, yada, yada. Now they're putting him in the ring with Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. No disrespect to those guys because they're great. Sting is not a young guy. Sting is 62 years old. I would venture to say he's not going to wrestle more than 2 more years. Even part-time, he's not going to wrestle 2 more years.
No, definitely not.
So why are we putting him in the ring with Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky?
No, I agree. This is probably the match this is probably my least anticipated match. Like I honestly don't even really care about this match that much. And I didn't grow up in this era, so if I say this, please don't kick me off the podcast or not let me do the thing Sunday night. I don't care about Sting that much. Like him returning, him coming to WWE, that was awesome. That was really cool. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the storyline up until WrestleMania, and then when he lost at WrestleMania, WCW finally died to Vince McMahon, whatever. And then the whole him getting injured thing, was it Seth Rollins' fault? Was it Sting's fault? Whose fault was it? It was a little bit of both. It was everybody's fault. Whatever. Then when he debuted in AEW, like his debut was really cool, and that got me really hyped up. His match that he had, I forget what pay-per-view it was.
The last one, Revolution. Yeah. The pay-per-view, that match was much better than I thought it was going to be. So I was all on board, but just oversaturation of it. Like he's one of those guys where his first match back should have been here at Double or Nothing against somebody. Against I'm trying to think who on the roster would be fun to see him up against Chris Jericho.
Yeah, against Chris Jericho. That would be fun. Against if you weren't going this way, you could do Sting versus MJF would be fun to watch.
Yeah.
You could see Sting versus I would be fine with Sting versus what's his name? I just lost his name from SCU. Christopher Daniels. Sting versus Christopher Daniels picking up there when they fought in TNA and everything. That would be a lot of fun. So like
Sting and Christian Cage.
Yeah, like I think all of that would be fun. I do think, with all this being said, I do think at some point we're going to have a retirement match. Loser retires, and I think it would be fun to have Christopher Daniels versus Sting in that match to see who goes home, because Christopher Daniels has been kind of teasing that his last match, or the tag team match against the Young Bucks was kind of his last match. I don't think that was a great match, but I don't think that was a send-off match, and I think you could set that up at some point. But all that being said, I don't really care about this match, and it is what it's a good way to get Darby Allin over, but Darby Allin's already is over. He's probably going to he's one of the hottest stars in pro wrestling right now.
Sting doesn't need to be his second all the time.
No, he doesn't. Just because their faces are painted doesn't mean they need to be together.
Bingo. I'm glad somebody else agrees with me.
So I think after this match, if they go their separate ways, everybody benefits for it.
I agree. I think we need to go our separate ways. I think Sting needs to be off television until close to All Out.
Yep.
And then you get him back in there, and then in a high-profile match. That would be good to get him and Jericho in there. Let's go ahead and talk about Jericho, and then we'll bounce back and forth a little bit.
Okay.
It'd be good to get him and Jericho in there because Jericho's about to go out on tour around All Out time. So that would be good to be able to get Jericho in there, get him a loss, get him off TV, that kind of thing. Speaking of a loss and off television, Stadium Stampede match Inner Circle loses, they have to disband. Is that confirmed?
Yep.
Okay. So Inner Circle loses, they have to disband. Inner Circle was in a Stadium Stampede match last year. Apparently, a portion of this is going to be live this year. Some of it is going to be pre-taped, but I did read part of it's going to be live, which makes total sense because you're going to have a crowd. They're expecting 100% capacity, around 5,500 people. So that makes sense, but there's no way that the Inner Circle wins this match, in my opinion.
Absolutely not.
No way.
I think it's going to be another case like it was at Blood and Guts where the Inner Circle is going to tear apart the Pinnacle, and then maybe MJF actually just shoots Chris Jericho and kills him to win the match, and that's how Jericho goes off TV for a little bit. I think this match is going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be creative as all get out. I think it's going to be better. Maybe I enjoy. I don't know if you did or not. I enjoyed the first Stadium Stampede. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it did a good job at not taking itself extremely seriously and just having fun, which I'm okay with in wrestling from time to time, as long as it's not overdone. But I think this match will be a lot better, and I think it'll have a lot more implications afterwards, obviously with the Inner Circle being disbanded. And I think you're going to see a lot of new stars coming out of this. And I think everybody, in a weird way, I think everybody benefits when the Inner Circle loses this match. And I think this entire feud may feel, I don't know if it necessarily is overdone or if it's too long. I think this is kind of a good end for it. But I do think everybody kind of benefits from this. And then Jericho can go away for a little bit and come back and make his shock return or whatever. And everybody loses their mind and he picks right back up where he left off. So I see the Inner Circle not walking away with the win here.
Well, I also think, too, that it's really, really important that the Pinnacle win this match because the Inner Circle has been the dominant force in AEW, not just one of the dominant forces, the dominant force in AEW since its inception. So in order for the Pinnacle to be taken seriously and to have any kind of credibility, they have got to win this match so that they can establish themselves as the next big thing. You know what I mean? So I think for MJF to be able to take that next step to maybe become world champion, I think that the Pinnacle has to be established. So I think they have to win this match. I think another thing you have to look at is that you mentioned the hilarity and the ha-ha, as JR would say, the ha-ha of the Stadium Stampede match last year. I think this has to be the total opposite.
Yeah.
I think this has to be blood and guts turned up.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more you can turn up blood and guts, but I think you have to turn it up for this match.
I think it would definitely be turned up. I think there would definitely be spots and moments that are hilarious. Anytime, anytime Santina, Ortiz and Santana are in a match, they're going to do something random and crazy and out of the blue. And so I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And I think, FTR knows how to, when they're not getting their back shaved by each other on Raw or whatever that stupid angle was. But they know, there's going to be some moments where it's going to be funny, and Jericho's funny, and MJF is funny. So, there's going to be times where the moments where it is. But I think the last 10 minutes of the match is going to be where everything really starts to come together.
Yep. I completely agree. So, I'm looking forward to this way more than last year because I'll be honest, I hated last year's match. I really did.
I figured.
But maybe that's because I went into it with the connotation of this is an amazing 5-on-5 match that just needs to be this epic encounter, and it wasn't.
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
So maybe that was my fault. Maybe I need to go back and watch it again, but I prefer not to. Anyway, speaking of the other guys that were in that match, the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick against Moxley and Kingston for the tag titles. Again, no way that Moxley and Kingston win this match, but I think it's a change of pace for the Bucks, man. I really do.
Yeah, shocker. I think this will be match of the night, and I think it'll be. I think these are two guys, all four guys, all wrestle such a different style that I think it's going to mesh really weird and really well. To where I think that it's just going to be a lot of fun, and they're going to be spots after spots after spots, but then you're going to have, I'm sure somebody's going to get hardcore by Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley, because that's just what they do.
Yep.
And so I think you could see these two. I think this will be match of the night. And I think it's just going to be a lot of fun to watch this. And then, I could possibly see Eddie Kingston turning on Jon Moxley after this match, or Jon Moxley turning on Kingston. I think either way. I think a heel Jon Moxley in AEW would be a lot of fun to watch.
I think some way, somehow Moxley has to go off television because he's about to have a baby. Yeah. Or his wife's about to have a baby, not him. Anyway, he's got to go off television. So I think a turn by Kingston, and maybe Kingston send him off television or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah. Or maybe Kingston doesn't turn on him. Maybe the Bucks demolish them at the end of the match, and then Kenny Omega comes out and the Good Brothers come out, and then they send Jon Moxley off like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that.
I don't know. But regardless, I'm not looking forward to this match because I'm not a Young Bucks fan. I'm not going to say it's going to be match of the night because I don't think it's going to be match of the night. But I will say that I am looking forward to the way that they work against Moxley and Kingston. Yep. Because in this heel turn, they've slowed down a bit, which is great. And Moxley and Kingston will make them slow down even more. Yep. So I am looking forward to that. Before we get to the championship match, let's go to the women's championship match. Britt Baker finally gets her shot at Hikaru Shida. The only reason that I'm looking forward to this match, because I haven't looked forward to any women's match at all in the 2 years of AEW. I'm just going to be honest. I haven't looked forward to any of them until this one. Because I think this is the spot where Britt Baker is finally crowned the face of the division.
I hope so. She should have been the face of the division from the beginning. Yep. I think this will be. I think this is one of, because I think the main event obviously has a potential to be match of the night. Mm-hmm. I think the Bucks and Moxley and Kingston have potential. I think Paige and Cage has a potential, but I think this one is the sleeper to be match of the night as well. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Britt Baker is doing amazing stuff right now in the ring, but she also knows how to work the camera extremely well, and I've noticed that from week to week. And so I think this is going to be one of those matches that shocks everybody, and I hope that she finally picks up the win and the championship that she needs, and then maybe we can get a new championship after that. Maybe a championship with some teeth on it. That'd be great.
Gosh. If I can't get that visual out of my head now. If she does not win this match, I'm going to go on record and say it at 8:01 Central Time on Wednesday, May 26th, as we're recording this. If Britt Baker does not win this match, I'm totally giving up on the AEW women's division forever. Wow. I'm giving up on it because it, like you said, she should have been the face from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Why she wasn't, I'll never know. I guess they wanted to establish the more skilled and experienced wrestlers. I get that, but she's the face. Yeah. She cuts the promos. She has, like you said, she knows how to work the camera. She has all of that going for her. Mm-hmm. Strap the dang rocket to her and bring some eyeballs to that division, because I'm sorry, Hikaru Shida is a great wrestler. Riho's a great wrestler, but the American fans don't know who they are. Right. And I don't think they take them seriously as a champion. No. Now, I'm not saying Britt Baker's is a well-known wrestler, but I feel like she's taken more seriously. Yeah, absolutely. Because she's been given the television time. Yeah. So why not put the title on her? So again, if she doesn't win, I'm done with the women's division. There's no hope. There's just no hope if she does not win this match.
I kind of agree in a way. I think the women's division in AEW is it's a mess. And sometimes there are moments when it's a beautiful mess, but overall it's a mess. And I think it needs a rehaul, and it starts right here with Britt Baker winning the championship. I think there are potential, because I forget her name, and Jade, I think her name is in Jade AEW. Cargill. Yeah, I think she has a chance to be a massive star.
Sure, she does.
And I think she could be the one that maybe dethrones Britt Baker. I think she'll win the world title in the next year, maybe a little longer. But I think it all starts right now with Britt Baker, and you have to put the strap on her, and you have to just let her do her thing on TV.
Yep.
Because she's, like you said, even when she was injured, she was still getting more TV time than most of the other women on the roster.
Bingo.
And so if you're going to do that, then why not just put the strap on her and just let her be her on TV with the championship?
Because, the old saying goes, is it the belt who makes the person or the person who makes the belt? In this situation right now with Britt Baker getting all this time, it's the person who needs to make the belt. Britt Baker needs to make the AEW Women's Championship.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad we agree on this. All right. World Heavyweight Championship in a triple threat match or whatever they call it. Pac, Orange Cassidy, Kenny Omega, the world champion. Again, I do not see this title changing hands at all. I think it's going to be a great match. I think Orange Cassidy versus Kenny Omega would have been lackluster by itself. We've seen Pac and Kenny Omega. They put on good matches. But again, I think it would have been lackluster by itself. Put all three elements together, much like we talked about the WWE triple threat match for the WWE Championship, Strowman and McIntyre and Lashley. Again, singles matches wouldn't have been as good, but in a triple threat match, I like it, but I do think I don't think there's any way Kenny Omega loses this match.
No, I don't think so either, especially with who is coming up to probably face the champion in the next couple pay-per-views, with maybe Christian Cage, with maybe Adam Page, with maybe even Brian Cage. Like there are a lot of champions that are stepping up, or there are a lot of contenders stepping up that I don't think would work with an Orange Cassidy or a Pac with the title. With that being said, I think both those guys are going to win the world title at some point. Because one, Orange Cassidy is probably the most over wrestler in AEW. Maybe.
Sure he is.
He's definitely been for like the last year or so. And then you got Pac, who is just a brutal short man that just knows how to murder people, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And so I think both of those guys are world champions at some point. I don't think it's right now. Especially we talk about these two guys. You got to give Kenny Omega a lot of credit. He is carrying basically two companies on his back right now in a lot of ways. And so I think keeping the belt on him, this is probably the best Kenny Omega we've had since his Okada trilogy.
100% it is.
And I don't think it's better than that, but I think we're like right at that level of where he has definitely reinvented himself and made himself much better than he was.
Well, to me, like my first exposure to Kenny Omega was the Okada matches.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about him prior to that. So all I've known is that Kenny Omega. So in seeing him in AEW, I'm like, where's the guy that wrestled Okada? Where's the guy that wrestled Jericho?
Yeah.
And now we're finally back to him. So I couldn't agree more, man. I think this is the Kenny Omega we needed. It took a long time to get there. Maybe that's AEW's thing, is it just takes a long time to get there, but this is the Kenny Omega we needed.
And I think part of it is that the Young Bucks and Cody and Kenny and like a lot of these guys that helped start this company, or basically started this company, didn't want it to be. They didn't want people to think that it was just their show and they can hold all the titles, whatever. And I get that. I get that.
I do too.
But if you want to make stars and you want to get people to follow you, putting the belt on Chris Jericho was the smartest thing they did at the beginning.
Yep.
But you should have had Kenny Omega right there at number 2 the entire time as well. And I think we've taken a little while to get there. They built up their tag team division. I still think their tag division is probably the best, if not one of the best in pro wrestling right now. But their main event level is picking itself back up, and I think we're starting to see that a little bit more. But I'm finally glad we're here with this Kenny Omega that is kind of running 2 shows at once and doing really well with both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree about the tag division as much as I don't like the Young Bucks. I love FTR. I love what Santana and Ortiz bring to the table. I love that kind of stuff.
But even like Jungle Express, like they're so different, but they work together really well, and they're a lot of fun to watch.
Sure. I mean, you look at the only thing that would be close to their tag division is the NXT tag division.
Yeah.
Which we're going to get to in a little bit with MSK and Grizzled Young Veterans and Thatcher and Ciampa and Legado del Fantasma and
Only Lorcan and Birch when they're healthy.
Only Lorcan and Birch when they're healthy. The list goes on and on there. So I think NXT definitely competes. I think it's a toss-up between the two, I think. But like you said, Kenny Omega is carrying 2 companies at this point. He's the guy. especially he's the face of AEW, and he needed to be.
Yeah.
I totally agree with your point that Jericho should have been the first champion. There's no way around that.
Yeah.
Kenny Omega should have been right there with him. We should have been off to the races because people in Japan saw that feud. Mm-hmm. Why not bring it to America? Yeah. Have Jericho and Omega feud for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And
I go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, I know that you bring in Moxley and you want to incorporate Moxley. Of course, we're talking about the first Double or Nothing. Mm-hmm. I get that you want to do that, but to establish Kenny, like he used to be the best bout machine.
Yeah.
Where has that been? You know what I mean? And now he's finally getting back to that.
Yeah, it's definitely a case of Jericho should have brought them on, like should have brought eyes on TV. Kenny Omega should have been the that kept them on TV. And I think the ratings have kind of shown that they're doing pretty well in keeping people. Right now, it's a little different because you got the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs, and sure. It's not going to be what it normally is, and that's totally understandable. But I will say, I think the one thing AEW has done well, while they haven't really pushed on all their major stars, they have started to bring up a lot of newcomers and bring them up to not a major star, but they brought them to where they're pretty well known now to a lot of people, like an Orange Cassidy, like Darby Allin, like MJF, guys like that have really benefited from kind of Kenny Omega and Cody and the Bucks for a while taking a back seat and letting these younger guys kind of come into the forefront for them.
Sure. And I totally get that. I really do. But, at the same time, I mean, I guess it's worked. But again, like I said earlier, it's AEW's philosophy of slowly getting to where they need to be. And maybe that's fine. Maybe that's what they want to do. I'm an impatient guy. I can't help it. I need results right now.
Right now, yeah.
You know what I mean? Right now. And right now, you are listening to the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. I'm your host, Chris Belcher. You can follow me at Chris Belcher24 on Twitter and on Instagram. You can follow the show at PBW Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make sure you subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast or on YouTube if you're watching our smiling faces. We appreciate that very much. I am joined by the host of The Shandy Show and the indie darling himself, Mr. Andy York. We have spent the last 35 plus minutes talking about AEW. Double or Nothing is this Sunday. Make sure you tune into our YouTube channel because your boy Andy York is going to be driving the train of the post show live right after Double or Nothing this coming Sunday night. So make sure you tune in. And
it's guaranteed to be a train wreck.
I wouldn't say a train wreck. You might go off the rails a time or three, but I don't think it'll wreck.
It'll definitely be a positive side to it for AEW for once on the show.
And then you can tune in next Thursday for your regular Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, and I will rip it to shreds. I'm just kidding. I won't rip it too bad. But that means that we need to get to the WWE. We've got a lot of stuff to cover with the WWE. The biggest thing being that this week it was announced that live crowds are coming back in July for the first SmackDown the last SmackDown before the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Then you got Money in the Bank. I think it's July 16th is SmackDown and 18th is Money in the Bank. So that's really exciting. I know that obviously AEW got a jump start on the crowd, but I think WWE has just waited to the right time. They want to be able to build the SummerSlam, work the kinks out before SummerSlam, and then be off to the races because they plan on keeping fans in the arenas for the rest of the time. They don't plan on going back. Yep. That's a good thing. I'm pretty pumped to see WWE live again. But only time will tell as to how it works, and hopefully we don't have a setback. Yep. But I'm pretty pumped for that, man. Honestly, I think it's gonna feel like wrestling again. You know what I mean? I remember vividly the first time that they got into the Thunderdome. And I was like, oh, man, this feels like WWE now. So now when we get back to crowds, it's going to be like, oh, man, here we are. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think Money in the Bank is, if you're not going to do WrestleMania, which they did WrestleMania, but it wasn't full crowd, I think the next best thing that isn't the Rumble is Money in the Bank. And I think that's a great way to bring fans back because it's always Money in the Bank is always one of those that the rest of the card could be terrible, But those 2 Money in the Bank matches are always fun to watch, and so it's going to make the show, and people are going to be hyped for it. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm expecting them to do some crazy, like, random stuff that night that nobody's expecting just because they have a live crowd.
Yep. Oh, I totally agree. So we are running heavy on time here, so we want to hit a couple things from SmackDown, Raw, and NXT, and then we will wrap this thing up. First, on SmackDown, the glaring thing that we have to talk about, man, is the in-person return of Aleister Black. He has returned. Looks like he's either targeting Big E or the Intercontinental Championship. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that? I mean, are you okay with that? Would you have booked him with somebody else? Or are you just, I'm just happy to see Aleister Black. I don't care what he does.
Yeah, I'm happy to see him back too. I'm glad that they remember continuity because he's got 2 different eyes now from
I was going to bring that up next if you did.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. I'm glad they finally remembered continuity. I'm happy with it. Only if he wins the Intercontinental Championship. If they just did all this to bring him back for him to lose and then release him, that's messed up and wrong and just on so many frustrating ways. Right. But I think I hope that they bring him back, let him win it, or let him come back. Maybe he doesn't challenge for the Intercontinental Championship. Maybe he goes into the Money in the Bank match and wins the Money in the Bank briefcase. Like that would be great too.
Could you imagine pushing him with that? Oh my gosh.
He's one of those guys that, like, as long as he's there, like as long as he cuts a promo, he doesn't necessarily have to wrestle every week because I would love to because he's a fantastic wrestler. Yep. But he could be one of those guys that could just be cutting promos with the Money in the Bank briefcase and just is always in the shadows waiting and could spring up and attack at some point. So I think that would be the best way to go if they're not going to put the Intercontinental Championship on him.
Well, I mean, and you look at Seth Rollins' Money in the Bank run was sort of like that. You didn't know when he was going to cash in because he never really teased it. He just walked around with the briefcase and did his thing, and then all of a sudden it just happened. Yep. Edge, exact same way with the first Money in the Bank run. So I think Aleister Black with this persona would be perfect to just hide out, hang out. Hey, I've got this. Remember, I've got this. And then all of a sudden just strike. I think that's great.
Yeah, I think that's the best way for him to go.
Speaking of the Intercontinental Championship, fatal 4-way for the main event of SmackDown this past week. Apollo Crews retains because of Aleister Black over Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Big E. Man, for 4 guys that are technically considered mid-carders, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily lump Kevin Owens into mid-carder, but that's the role that he's in right now.
Right.
Man, this match was awesome. I really enjoyed it.
When you get Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in the same ring together, it's always amazing because they were in that fatal 4-way at Extreme Rules a few years ago with The Miz and Cesaro. That's
right.
Absolutely amazing.
Yep.
And so anytime you get those 2 guys in the ring, one-on-one, they kill it. And in a multi-man match, they kill it. When they're tagging together, they kill it. So those 2 guys, their chemistry is really great. Yep. I really enjoy Apollo Crews right now. I really enjoy Apollo Crews. I love Big E. I think Big E should be a WWE champion at some point because he has charisma and talent and he's funny and everybody loves him. And I think, but he could also he can turn it on really quick and be a dominant, powerful guy at the same time. So I'd love to see him. So I think this match was just kind of showcasing everybody and then returning Black. I think SmackDown right now is definitely picking itself back up, and it's doing. I mean, when you've got Roman Reigns killing it like he is, and you've got everybody else kind of following in line doing the same thing, it's hard to beat it right now.
Let me ask you this: do you put Big E in the main event of SummerSlam with Roman Reigns? But let me add to that: do you put him in the feud with Reigns and end it at SummerSlam, or do you put Reigns in a one-off with somebody quickly at SummerSlam? And then you feud Big E from SummerSlam to Survivor Series?
Maybe. I thought, and this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit, I think it would be great to have Roman Reigns versus Finn Balor for the WWE Championship. I think that would be a great way to kind of bring Finn back to SmackDown, especially them bringing up Roman and Paul Heyman during NXT more than once was setting, placing the seeds for that.
Sure.
So I could see those 2 going at it for a little while. So I don't think you really do Big E until maybe the Rumble, maybe Survivor Series to the Rumble or whatever it is. Well, they don't really do Survivor Series matches anymore. But like, at least after Survivor Series to the Royal Rumble, I think you could do Big E there. But I think right now Finn Balor's kind of coming to that spot.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Balor for SummerSlam.
Yeah,
I think you need Balor for SummerSlam for sure. All right, let's move over to Monday Night Raw. A shakeup once again with the announce team. WWE announced the mutual parting of them and Adnan, whatever his name is. He's been the play-by-play guy since Monday night, or since the night after WrestleMania, and I still can't get his name right. Obviously, I didn't feel like he ever fit in. He turned into a color commentator the majority of the time, and he wasn't good at that.
No,
he had no energy. His voice just didn't match. I'm happy to see him go, honestly.
Yeah, and like I hate it for him. I don't necessarily hate it for him. He's like, if you ever listen to him, I think he normally does baseball games.
I was gonna say, yeah, he does baseball, and his voice.
He does pretty good.
Baseball. He does really good.
Does pretty good. It just, I don't think he has the same enthusiasm as he does in baseball, as he does in pro wrestling, and that's because he's not a pro wrestling fan. Like, he doesn't care about pro wrestling, and so it doesn't. He's not going to be as excited for it. And I think the only reason why they brought him in is just so he would listen to Vince and follow everything Vince said and not push back on Vince. And I think that was kind of the whole setup for it, and it did not work very well. And I'm assuming that you're going to talk about who they're bringing in. Yep. And so I don't know a whole lot about him. Well, I forget his name. It's Jimmy
Smith. He came from the world of Bellator and American Ninja Warrior. Yeah,
so he might be better.
Well, if he's the guy that I'm thinking of from American Ninja Warrior, he's going to be just fine.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think he's the guy I'm thinking of from American Ninja Warrior. I don't remember that guy.
I think he's the bald, like the white bald-headed guy. I think that's who it is.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I saw a picture of him. That's him. So I think it's going to be better than what we had. I don't know that it's. Listen, I'm a Tom Phillips guy. I want them to bring back Tom Phillips more than anything. Shout out to Tom Phillips if you're listening to this podcast. I want them to bring back Tom Phillips. I think he's fantastic. So Jimmy is not going to be Tom Phillips, but he's going to be better than Vert.
Yeah, and SmackDown has a 2-man crew, and it does just fine. We don't need 3 guys at the desk. So, like,
see, I don't think so either.
Send Byron Saxton somewhere else. Make Byron Saxton a backstage guy, and keep Corey Graves and whoever, and let them do commentary together, and let them do their own thing. And I think that would be fine. Corey Graves is probably the best commentator. Well, best commentator on the main roster out of the 2 shows. So I think those two. I think it works really well. I love Wade Barrett in NXT. I think he is.
I was just getting ready.
He's so much fun.
Do you like Barrett better?
I would love for them to bring him up. I would love for him to get back in the ring, though, mainly for him. But, I think this is fine. Only time will tell. It just depends on if they're going to let him be himself or if they're going to try to turn him into something else. And we'll just have to wait and see.
I think the pairing of Vic Joseph and Corey Graves would be fantastic. Mm-hmm. If you guys listen to the After the Bell podcast, those guys are on there together, and it's so much fun to listen to. I would love for that to be on screen.
Yeah.
So one more thing from Monday Night Raw. You tweeted earlier in the week, and you made sure to tag us in it, which I have to bring up because you're here with me. You said something along the lines of, remember when Charlotte versus Asuka meant something?
Yeah.
I was in the building the first time these 2 women clashed at WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans. That was the big money women's match for WrestleMania 34. And now we're seeing it every single week on Raw.
Yep.
And we're seeing a ton of other rematches every single week on Raw. So honestly, man, that's why I think Raw is hard to get through. I mean, it's piggyback on your tweet and then, on that.
I don't know. Like, it's not like they don't have enough women on the roster to like mix it up every week. I mean, you've got a lot of people there, and Alexa Bliss isn't even wrestling anymore on week-to-week TV. So like you've got people on there that like wrestles, and like my biggest problem wasn't even with Asuka versus Charlotte. While that was like the 3rd week in a row, I think, counting the WrestleMania Backlash pay-per-view where they were part of the triple threat. My biggest issue was the Rhea Ripley Nikki Cross match, because both of them looked terrible after the match.
Sure, they did.
It did no good for Rhea, because Rhea looks like an idiot now, and Nikki Cross is just happy to survive 2 minutes in a match.
She looks like she just won the championship.
Yeah, so she looks ridiculous as well. So like, they're not benefiting anybody at all in this scenario or in this situation. So right. I don't understand why they're doing that. If they're trying to build a Rhea versus Charlotte, find another way to do it and put Asuka with somebody else and let her do her own thing. Yep. Or take her off TV for a little while and make her come. When she comes back, she'll get a huge pop and she'll be a big deal. And yep. You know, I remember the build up to WrestleMania 34. That the Charlotte Asuka match was probably the most anticipated, if not one of the most anticipated matches on the entire card.
I definitely think one of for sure, because you had AJ and Nakamura as well.
Yeah. And I think that match was probably match of the night, if I remember correctly. It was either that one or it was either the opening match of the triple threat for the IC belt.
And those two matches happened back to back.
Yeah. And then you had the John Cena Undertaker thing that was going on.
Yep.
Kind of during both of those matches at the same time. And both of them were still two of the best matches of the night, two of the best yep. matches in the last probably 5 to 10 years of WrestleMania, if we're being real honest.
Yep.
And so it went from being like that to, you know, every time they fought on pay-per-view, it was still kind of a big deal. And I remember their triple threat at TLC between Becky and Charlotte and Asuka. That was different. That was fun. Yep. But then now we're just seeing it every single week, and it's oversaturation. And now I don't even care about Asuka as much, and I don't care about Charlotte as much. And it's annoying, and they need to figure out a way to fix it.
And it's not like the wrestling is not good, because their skills haven't diminished at all. And their chemistry is undeniable. They're really good in the ring together.
Yeah.
I'm just tired of seeing it.
Right.
Make it special again.
Yeah.
Let's move over to the Black and Gold NXT, easily the show of the week every single week. And again, I will continue to remind you folks, the reason that we moved our shows from Wednesdays to Thursdays is so we can talk about NXT. The first thing I want to talk about, obviously we're going to get to the main event, but let's talk about the debut match of Frankie Monet, known in other circles as Taya Valkyrie.
Mm-hmm.
I was fine with, what they did. I had an issue with them having two women's squash matches in the same 2-hour show. But I don't think that was Frankie Monet's fault. I think they should have sidebarred the Mercedes Martinez thing, but that's another discussion for another time. What I'm interested in, and maybe you'll know this, she used Beth Phoenix's finisher to win this match. Is that her normal finisher as well?
I think so. I think so. I think it was either that or some variation of that. But I picked up on that too when she hit it. Beth said something, but then like even after the match, she kind of, if you notice, she kind of looked over at commentary. So a Frankie Monet Beth Phoenix match at NXT Takeover would be a lot of fun, and I would be all for that. I think Frankie Monet is going to be the female version of Bobby Roode in NXT, where it's a lot of flash and really good outside of the ring, and their in-ring work isn't the best, but it's manageable and it's okay and it's fine. Bobby Roode's not one of the greatest wrestlers inside the ring, but his promos and his character development, all of that is what made him such a massive star in NXT. And I think this is going to be the same thing for Frankie Monet. And she's good. She's good in the ring, but I think it's her character outside the ring that's really going to get her over and be one of the major stars of the women's division.
Do you think this is a situation where she's only in NXT for a cup of coffee and then she goes to the main roster because she has that experience and she's so well known outside of WWE?
Only if they put her with John Morrison. Like only if they put her with her husband and let them kind of do their thing together. I think they could play that part very, very well on TV, and I think that would be fine. But I would love to have her stay in NXT for at least 6 months.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
And just kind of get the feeling of things, and then be brought up and be paired with John and do their thing.
I anticipate her going to the main roster around WrestleMania next year. Slowly.
She'll definitely appear in the Rumble this year.
Oh, no doubt. Oh, hands down.
Yeah,
she'll appear in the Rumble. Let's talk about the main event. Carrion Cross retains the NXT Championship over Finn Balor. No surprise here as to the result of this match, but what a great match it was.
Mm-hmm.
You know me, we mentioned earlier, and I have it in my notes, it's about time for Finn Balor to go back to the main roster. We touched on that earlier. I would think it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Right.
But you know me, I'm going to pick stuff apart. So one of the only real takeaway that I can see in this match that I wasn't a huge fan of is there were some no-sell spots by Carrion Cross that I just didn't like.
I have that in my notes too, and I said I love the Carrion Cross no-sell.
Of course you do.
Because, and here's the only reason why. Is because it shows him as champion against a smaller guy that takes his hit and then just gets right back up again and puts Balor in the move. It wasn't like he was doing it. It's one of those times where it's like the rare kick out at one on a finisher can either be amazing or it can be terrible. And I'm going to pull out an indie one on you, so bear with me. But Kota Ibushi got hit. I forget what match he was in. It may have been against Tanahashi. And Tanahashi hit his finisher on him after this 45-minute grueling match. And Kota Ibushi kicked out at one. And the crowd went crazy. But then Tanahashi hit it again and got the pinfall 1, 2, 3. So that was one of those that it showed his resiliency and it showed that. So I was fine with it here because Cross, it made Karrion Kross feel like such a massive champion to where it's like, who's going to take this title off of him now? If Finn Balor gave him a couple of his best shots and he just stood right back up from it, I think to me that's why it worked. But I also understand your side where it could be a little annoying too.
Well, I'll throw you an example from back in the old WWF days that I just listened to on the most recent Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard remix about the 1994-1995 run of Shawn Michaels. WrestleMania 11, Shawn is facing Big Daddy Cool Diesel for the WWF Championship. And at that time, Shawn has really established the super kick as his finishing move. And Shawn's hit Diesel with a super kick, and it's, like they're selling it as this devastating kick or whatever. Well, he gets close to the end of the match, and Shawn hits super kick. Well, Vince tells them before the match, it's like, Diesel, I want you to strongly kick out at one. And Shawn and Diesel were both like, no. That's the fans are going to hate it. They're going to crap all over it. And Vince was like, no, I want you to do it. Sure enough, Shawn hits a super kick. Diesel kicks out at one, and here come the Boo Birds. So it can work and it cannot work.
Right.
But my defense in it not working is what I would have bought and been okay with is if Balor would have come out of the gates flying, just hitting stuff. Then he hits like some of those moves that were no-sold in the beginning of the match. And they get no-sold there. Okay. But we're like 20 minutes into the match at this point, and Cross is still no-selling stuff. That's where I have a problem. Okay, anybody, I don't care who you are, that's wrestled for 20 minutes, you're going to be worn down a little bit. You got to, that was the high spot dive over the top rope is the one that really got me. It's like, that's a big high spot. Can you at least let it go for a minute? Yeah. Then let's say Balor wants to pick you up and do something else. Okay, then you reverse and you do that suplex onto the table. Yep. But man, that's a big spot where the crowd's into it. They're not going to buy you just getting up.
Yeah, or have him just catch Balor and do it.
Or have him catch Balor. That's fine
either way.
Too.
Yeah.
I didn't issue
that one was probably the one that kind of pushed it over. To where it was a little too much. A couple of the ones in the beginning, I think worked really well.
Sure.
And I think it's weird because if you do it in the middle of a match, it doesn't really make as much sense. But if you do it at the beginning of a match or right at the very end of a match, it works in some ways.
If he's hulking up, or for lack of a better term,
or he wants to keep it, he wants to hold on to a championship. So he's put it into that third gear now where he's just psychotic and crazy and nothing can harm him. Right. So I think that would have been fine, but it would have. This kind of took away from it a little bit.
Right. Other than that, I thought the match was fantastic. I really did. I think this is a terrific sin for. I'm not saying Balor's going straight to the main roster now, but I think this is the way to get him there. Next week, number one contenders match to see who faces Karrion Kross at TakeOver in Your House. Pete Dunne, Kyle O'Reilly, and Johnny Gargano. I said this on the podcast last week, man. I feel like that they're building to Gargano versus Kross, especially with Gargano dropping that title. Yep. I think Gargano wins next week, and we at least have him get a crack at Karrion Kross.
Yeah, I fully agree. But let me ask you this question, because I wrote down some things in my notes, and I want to get your take and then see if we line up or not. But who do you think dethrones Kross?
Man, that's a good question.
Because I've got 3 names.
Okay, give me what you got.
I've got Bronson Reed. I think if they could build up Bronson Reed, at some point he could. I think Walter could come in and do it. But my shock one is I would love to see Kevin Owens come back to NXT and beat Karrion Kross and keep that title for a little while.
I can deal with that.
Because I think KO needs to do the Finn Balor route and come back to NXT for a little bit and then go back to the main roster.
Sure. I can get down with that. I'm going to throw you one. Let's see here. Trying to think if this is just going to be a shocker, if it's actually going to make sense. I'm going to throw you one who Karrion Kross has already beat. Okay. But I'm going to say Santos Escobar. I think if you give him another run, establish him for a little bit, give him another run, I think he could be a really good champion. I do
too.
Because at some point, Karrion Kross is going to have to lose and go to the main roster.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen.
Right.
So who is going to dethrone him? I like that. I also like Tommaso Ciampa coming back and getting him.
Yeah. I really love what him and Timothy Thatcher are doing together right now.
See, I hate it.
Really? I love him. I love him together. I love Timothy Thatcher. I think Timothy Thatcher is one of those guys. He's like Cameron Grimes, where if it was anybody else, I don't think it would work. But because of who is doing it, it's amazing. I love both of them so much.
Is there a scenario where Cameron Grimes could take the title from Karrion Kross?
Maybe. I think they could build. I think Cameron Grimes will be a great babyface one day. And I think
he's gonna be great.
I think he could take Karrion Kross, especially if like what they're doing with him and Ted DiBiase right now. Like I think they could make Cameron Grimes into a massive, massive star in NXT.
I think that there's a possibility. Oh, and I completely agree because I love Cameron Grimes. I think everything he touches turns to gold. I love it. Literally because he's whatever. Anyway. I don't think it's going to happen this time, but I think Gargano could take the title from Kross. And I think the reason I say that is because you could find a way for Gargano to steal the title. Because somebody, in order to beat Karrion Kross, somebody's going to have to steal the title. Mm-hmm. It's going to have to be not necessarily a cheap finish, but it's going to have to be all hands on deck. Yeah. You got to kill him to beat him kind of thing.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Is there a scenario where Dexter Lumis takes it from him?
I don't know about that. I don't know about Lumis. I think Lumis needs to run with the North American title before anything if they're going to put a title on him. I don't know. I would much rather see someone like Pete Dunne do it. Because I think Pete Dunne was like a great champion in NXT UK. And then he's kind of like he hasn't had a bad match in NXT, but he hasn't really gotten to that next level in NXT yet. And I would love to see him kind of take that next step.
A name that we haven't mentioned is Adam Cole. Do you think he's just main roster bound at this point and they're just sitting him out? Or I
don't think he's main roster bound. I think there's still too much to do with the Undisputed Era, I think, for him to be main roster bound. But I don't think they're going to put him in the title picture for a long time if they do again. But I could see him being the first ever 3-time NXT champion.
Sure.
At some point, but not for a while.
I agree. All right, man. That is going to do it for the main portion of our content. Before we head out, we always have to hand out our high spots and turd sandwiches, the highs and the lows of everything in the wrestling business this week. I will kick us off with my turd sandwich, something that we did not mention from Monday Night Raw. And that is my boy.
That was mine.
AJ Styles taking the L to Jackson Riker.
That was mine.
What are we doing here, man? What are we doing?
I don't know. That should never happen.
And AJ has been vocal about saying this. Like, he understands that you can't always be at the top of the card.
Right.
Fine. fantastic, but you should not be losing as a tag team champion. I don't care who interferes. You should not be losing to Jackson Riker.
No. If it was Elias, it would be different, I think.
I could buy Elias.
Yeah, but
can't buy.
No. That was mine.
That's fine. No, you don't have to come up with another one. I get.
Well, I was just gonna say Adnan Verk's entire career on Monday Night Raw is a turd sandwich. I think.
Can we just say this past Monday Night Raw was a turd sandwich from top to bottom?
Okay, absolutely. Good. It was a terrible show.
It was not good. It was Drew and Kofi. That was good.
The finish killed it for me, though.
Oh, it did. No, 100%. The match was
good. Yeah.
The finish, awful, terrible. I'm definitely looking forward to their rematch next week, though.
Yeah,
I will say that. High spot. I'm going to go ahead and tell you mine, and I may steal yours. To me, it's Karrion Kross versus Finn Balor. It has to be. When you get a match with this much anticipation on a weekly television show and they hit it out of the park like those guys did, I mean, it's high spot of the week for me, hands down. What about you?
Yeah, that's definitely one of them. That was probably like my number one, but my number two was actually Pete Dunne versus Bobby Fish. I really, really enjoyed that match.
It was a good match.
And really the finish of that match was what kind of put it over for me, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's weird. It's kind of weird that Bobby Fish lost his first match back. Sure. But I think if it's to set up Pete Dunne facing Cross at some point, then I think it's fine. But that match was really, really good.
I thought it was really good. As always, you just need to go back and watch all of NXT if you haven't, because we didn't even talk about Cameron Grimes and Ted DiBiase.
No.
We didn't even talk about it looks like that Bronson Reed's first challenger for the North American title is going to be Santos Escobar. You got MSK coming out and getting involved. You have this weird thing with Mercedes Martinez and Xia Li and all that craziness. Yeah. And then the opening women's tag match, Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez against Amber Moon and Shotzi Blackheart. I mean, the show is loaded each and every week. If you're not watching NXT, you're missing out. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
What else you're missing out on is if you're not subscribing to our podcast, you are missing 2 pieces of audio video gold every single week, every Monday and Thursday. Make sure you're checking us out wherever you find your podcast, Spotify, Google, Apple, Anchor. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitch. Make sure you subscribe. Give us 5 stars. We appreciate it. And leave us some comments. We'll interact with you, and we'll read them on the show. We read Andy's earlier, and that was not just because he was on the show. I had planned to do that. You can follow me on sorry, I lost my train of thought, on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Chris Belcher 24, and right there it is. And I told you all I was going to flash that Pro Wrestling Tees code up here. I'm not going to do that because I'm not prepared. I did not do that. So, ProWrestlingTees.com/PBW podcast. I'm really getting ahead of myself in this outro here. PBW podcast. Make sure you buy yourself a t-shirt. Use the code MEMORIAL. That is the word MEMORIAL for 20% off. You can get that on our store. You can get that on everybody else's store. But we prefer that you get it from our store. Make sure you buy a shirt and support the show. We greatly appreciate it. Again, subscribe to us on social media. Subscribe to our podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube. And if you forget all those things and you're watching on YouTube, we got a fancy little ticker right down below that will remind you. Mr. Andy York has a show coming up very, very soon. That is this Sunday. He is doing our post show for Double or Nothing. Make sure you tune in to YouTube and all those fancy places. That way you can interact with him right after Double or Nothing on Sunday night. You've also got your own podcast coming up soon, The Shandy Show. Tell everybody again, I know you've been on the show recently, and everybody's probably tired of hearing about this, but for you Marvel and DC fans, this is a podcast for you. Tell them where they can find it and what it's about.
Yeah, so you can find us basically anywhere that you find the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast. You'll be able to find our new show as well. As you can tell by my lovely wall behind me, we talk about all things Star Wars, DC, Marvel. We just recently, I think today or yesterday, got the Eternals trailer for the new movie coming out in November. So we're going to be talking about all that kinds of stuff very, very soon. But once we get moved into our new house, we will be setting everything up to do that. So once life gets settled down, we will be bringing back the podcast and doing all of that fun stuff. So I'll be looking forward to that. My beautiful and lovely wife may actually be joining me for some of it. So I've got her hooked onto Marvel. So we'll see if she'll come on and talk about it and embarrass her a few minutes on there, and then have some fun. So
did you say that because she's sitting in the room?
Absolutely, she's staring at me right now as I'm doing it. So I'm catching on to the husband duties very quickly. I feel like.
Listen, you're only like a month in, and you're doing great. It's awesome.
So, thank you.
That is fantastic. As always, Andy, it's a blast to have you on, man. I appreciate you doing the show with us.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to Sunday.
Sunday is going to be awesome. Double or Nothing. Make sure you watch the show and make sure you tune in to Andy afterwards. For Mr. Andy York, I am Chris Belcher, your phenomenal host. Thanks again for joining us on the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast this week, and we will catch you guys down the road.